The early morning sun glared down on camp, turning the sprawling training grounds into a golden, dusty arena. The scent of sweat, sand, and gun oil hung in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of brewing coffee from the mess hall nearby. A group of Marines had gathered on the field, forming a loose circle, their boots crunching over gravel as they exchanged jokes and laughter. The air buzzed with anticipation, or perhaps more accurately, arrogance. From the edge of the field, a figure approached, moving with deliberate, unhurried steps. Lieutenant Maya Torres strode forward, her posture erect, eyes steady, and her uniform crisply pressed, the insignia of her rank gleaming in the sun. At 27, she carried an aura that demanded attention, even before a single word left her lips. Long before this moment, she had carved a reputation in the Corps, one earned not through boastful tales but through relentless discipline and undeniable skill. Yet here, she could feel the skepticism thickening the air. A ripple of murmurs and chuckles passed through the Marines. 6 of them, all mid-20s and brimming with confidence, or what they assumed was confidence, had positioned themselves front and center. Their informal leader, Sergeant Briggs, a stocky man with a square jaw and a cocky grin, leaned toward his comrades and whispered something. The others laughed, the sound rolling across the dusty field like a wave. "Look at her," said, voice loud enough for some of the others to hear. "Bet she can't even take a push-up without wobbling." Maya didn't flinch. She had encountered this before countless times. The laughter, the underestimation, the casual arrogance of men who had never faced someone truly capable. They all thought it a rite of passage to mock her, to dismiss her because of gender. She had learned long ago that their ridicule was a predictable barrier, one easily overcome with quiet precision. Today, though, she intended to do more than merely overcome it. Today, she intended to command respect. Captain Reed, a seasoned officer in his 40s with silver flecks in his hair and eyes that had seen too much action to be impressed easily, stepped forward. He held a clipboard in one hand and gestured toward Maya with the other. "Marines," he said, his voice steady but carrying authority, "meet Lieutenant Torres. She'll be leading today's hand-to-hand combat demonstration. I expect full attention and respect." Maya inclined her head politely, her dark eyes sweeping across the circle of men before her. She noticed leaning casually, hands on his hips, smirk still plastered across his face. He believed, undoubtedly, that he had already won this battle before it began. The other Marines followed his lead, some chuckling, others rolling their eyes. Maya let them be. She knew that ego and doubt were a dangerous combination in a Marine, but also the perfect setting for teaching a lesson that would linger far beyond the morning. "First," she said, her voice calm and precise, "we'll go over technique. Pay attention. This isn't about size or strength. It's about leverage, timing, and awareness." Her words were measured, yet carried an edge that made the Marines pause for a fraction of a second, an eternity in moments of arrogance. Snorted, "Oh yeah, well, we'll see about that." He cracked his knuckles theatrically, drawing laughter from the others. "A little lady like you," he shook his head, smirking, "might want to step aside before you get crushed." Maya's lips curved into a faint, controlled smile. "We'll see," she said softly, but inside she was already calculating. The Marines' postures, their balance, their dominant hand, the subtle cues in their eye movement, all of it was a map, and she had memorized it before a single step was taken. Captain Reed watched quietly, sensing the tension growing in the circle. He had seen Maya in action before, but he also knew that these Marines were cocky, untested against someone like her. "Lieutenant," he said, his tone neutral, "demonstrate." Maya nodded and stepped into the center of the circle. The gravel crunched beneath her boots, loud in the sudden silence. Swaggered forward, eager to prove himself, followed by the 5 others who were clearly determined to assert dominance. Each moved with exaggerated confidence, a mix of bravado and ignorance, unaware that Maya's calm demeanor masked lethal precision honed over years of training. Her eyes scanned them quickly, calculating distance, weight, momentum. The men lunged forward one by one, testing her reflexes, expecting a stumble, a falter, a hesitation. Maya moved with the grace of someone who understood physics as much as combat. A sidestep here, a deflection there. Each of aggressive pushes met with a small, precise redirection of energy. Within moments, found himself on the ground, staring up at the sky, stunned into silence. A ripple of gasps followed, the laughter now replaced by murmurs of disbelief. The other Marines exchanged confused glances. One muttered, "Lucky shot," while another muttered, "Wait, did she just?" Maya didn't smile triumphantly. Instead, she knelt to ensure hadn't been injured, her movements controlled and professional. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. Embarrassed, scrambled to his feet, brushing gravel off his uniform. Pride, humiliation, and awe warred in his eyes. Captain Reed's gaze was steady. "This is control, Marines," he said, voice calm but resonant. "Skill, not size, precision, not brute force. Take note." Maya stepped back, letting the 6 Marines regain their footing. Some shuffled awkwardly, others avoided eye contact, but all had a seed of recognition planted. Today was not just about technique. It was about respect earned, assumptions shattered, and lessons learned without a single raised voice. As she straightened, her eyes briefly met. There was no anger, only a quiet warning. Underestimate me, and the consequences won't be trivial. The other Marines began to grasp it too, though slowly, and the tension in the air shifted from mocking to cautious attention. In that moment, the camp mourning seemed to pause. Laughter had been silenced, and curiosity and apprehension filled its place. Lieutenant Maya Torres had arrived, and the Marines would never approach hand-to-hand combat the same way again. The morning sun had climbed higher, its harsh light glinting off the desert-like terrain of camp. Dust rose in thin clouds with every step, sticking to uniforms slick with sweat. The 6 Marines who had gathered around Lieutenant Maya Torres were still recovering from the earlier encounter. Briggs, the facto ringleader of the group, fumed in silence, his pride bruised more than his body. The others exchanged uncertain glances. Laughter had disappeared from the air, replaced by a strange mixture of tension, disbelief, and curiosity. None of them had expected a single Marine, a woman no less, to incapacitate in an instant, and the shock still lingered in their minds like static. Maya stood calmly in the center of the circle, arms crossed, her posture relaxed but commanding. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and the faint glint of her eyes betrayed the confidence of someone who had trained for years in situations far more dangerous than a training exercise. She had watched stumble and recover, noted the other men's body language, and silently catalogued each Marine's strengths and weaknesses. She didn't need to rush. She had learned that timing, patience, and precise movement always outmatched aggression and arrogance. Still brushing dust from his uniform, forced a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "All right, folks," he said loudly, attempting to regain his bravado. "Maybe we got lucky that first time. Let's see how you handle all of us now." He gestured at the others with a flourish, and the 5 remaining Marines shuffled forward, smirking in varying degrees of forced confidence. Some seemed genuinely skeptical, others eager to show Maya she couldn't possibly manage 6 of them at once. The circle tightened around her. The soldiers' breaths were heavy in the dry morning air. A few muttered jokes trying to break the tension. "Better watch out, Briggs," one whispered. "You might get crushed again by a girl." Another snorted audibly, "Don't underestimate her unless you like gravel in your face." Laughter bubbled up, but it was nervous, uncertain. Maya didn't respond verbally. She simply let her eyes sweep the group, her gaze lingering on each Marine just long enough to measure their weight distribution, posture, and muscle tension. She had been here before, many times in different training environments, sometimes in hostile territories, other times in small, unassuming gyms. The principle was always the same. Overconfidence was a weakness, and those who underestimated her always paid the price. Captain Reed observed silently from the edge of the circle. He could see the tension building, the anticipation, the unspoken challenge forming in his eyes. He knew that today would either cement respect for Maya or teach the Marines a lesson the hard way. He trusted Maya, but he also knew human ego was unpredictable, and a group of cocky, competitive Marines could be volatile when their pride was threatened. Stepped forward first, hands raised in mock surrender. "All right, Lieutenant," he said, grinning. "Let's see what you've got. Don't hold back." His voice carried over the field, confident, almost theatrical. The others chuckled quietly behind him, exchanging bets on who would be first to go down, or whether she could take them all. Maya tilted her head slightly, acknowledging him with the faintest hint of a nod. "Step forward," she instructed, voice calm, unshaken. "But remember, this is about control, not speed. You'll learn more if you let yourself be guided." Her tone was measured, professional, but there was an edge of warning that made even the most brash Marine hesitate. His grin widened. "Control? Ha, you'll need more than control to handle me," he said, lunging forward with an exaggerated swing aimed at her chest. The movement was clumsy, predictable, precisely what Maya had anticipated. In a single fluid motion, she guided his momentum to the side and executed a subtle yet devastating sweep. Legs buckled beneath him, sending him sprawling into the gravel. He scrambled upright, eyes wide, struggling to mask his shock. The circle fell silent, the previous laughter extinguished instantly. One Marine whispered, "No way," another muttered. "That didn't just happen." Himself struggled to regain his composure, brushing the dust from his uniform with shaking hands, a flush of embarrassment creeping across his face. But Maya wasn't done. She had learned in countless drills and real-life confrontations that momentum and timing were her greatest allies. As the next Marine stepped forward, emboldened by his attempt, Maya's eyes flicked to him, noting the slight shift in weight, the angle of approach, the dominant hand. She had 100 small observations stored in her mind, each waiting for the perfect moment to be applied. The second Marine lunged aggressively, swinging his fists, trying to overwhelm her with sheer size. Maya tilted her body, letting his energy carry him forward. With a deft twist, she redirected his force, sending him tumbling to the ground, unhurt but stunned. Gasps and murmurs echoed across the field. One Marine muttered under his breath, she's good." The third, fourth, and fifth Marines approached cautiously now, hesitation creeping into their movements. Maya's presence was magnetic, commanding, not through intimidation but through calm, confident mastery. Every move she made was precise and purposeful. Each deflection, twist, and sweep was smooth, efficient, and taught a silent lesson about underestimation. Within minutes, all 5 men found themselves on the ground, a mix of frustration, disbelief, and admiration etched across their faces. Standing slightly apart, clenched his fists. Pride battled with grudging recognition. He had been humbled, and it was a bitter taste. But even he couldn't deny what he had just witnessed. Maya Torres was extraordinary. The realization settled in slowly, uncomfortably, but undeniably. Captain Reed stepped forward, breaking the tense silence. "Marines," he said, voice calm but resonant, "what you just experienced wasn't luck or magic. It was control, precision, and technique. Skill matters more than strength. Remember this." His eyes flicked briefly to Maya, a subtle nod of respect exchanged between them. Maya knelt briefly, checking each Marine for injuries. None were serious. She maintained a professional demeanor, showing that she valued the safety of her colleagues as much as the lesson itself. She rose gracefully, her eyes meeting one final time. There was no malice in her gaze, only quiet authority. The message was clear: underestimate me at your own risk, but respect can be earned without arrogance. The field remained silent for a moment longer, the Marines' previous bravado replaced by thoughtful tension. Even the most skeptical of the group felt a shift. A seed of respect had been planted. They had laughed initially, mocked the idea of a female instructor, and assumed superiority. That assumption had been shattered in mere seconds. By the time the circle began to disperse, the mood had shifted. Some Marines lingered, glancing at Maya with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Others muttered to each other, replaying the demonstration in their minds, trying to understand what had just occurred. Walked away, jaw tight, pride bruised, but silently acknowledging that he had underestimated someone he now knew was extraordinary. As Maya collected her notes and prepared for the next segment of training, She allowed herself a fleeting thought. Today had been more than a demonstration of skill. It had been a statement. In a world where assumptions often dictated outcomes, she had proven that mastery and composure were far more formidable than strength or ego. And as the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the field, the Marines began to realize that this was only the beginning. The real lesson wasn't just the takedown. It was the quiet authority, patience, and skill that Maya Torres embodied. A lesson that none of them would soon forget. The morning heat pressed down harder now, and the training field at camp seemed to shimmer with tension. Dust rose from the gravel as Marines shifted nervously, their earlier laughter long gone. Word of defeat had spread quickly through the circle, and the 5 remaining Marines, still uncertain, still unwilling to admit their underestimation, stood tense, ready to confront Lieutenant Maya Torres together. Maya's eyes swept across them, calm and calculating. The men were moving as a single, semi-organized unit, each relying on brute strength rather than strategy. She noted their stances, their dominant sides, the weight distribution of each Marine's feet. Timing, leverage, and momentum, these were the tools she wielded. A single misstep from them, a single hesitation, would be enough for her to execute what she had practiced countless times in simulations and prior training exercises. "All right," she said softly, her voice steady, measured, almost serene. "One move, all of you." She didn't need to shout. The command carried authority. It wasn't a challenge, it was an inevitability. Clenched his fists, stepping forward despite the lingering sting of humiliation. Beside him, the others mirrored his aggression, forming a semicircle around her, their eyes narrowing with determination, and perhaps just a touch of fear. Each of them assumed she could only handle one at a time. Each of them assumed she would falter under the combined force of 6 strong, trained Marines. Maya breathed in slowly, feeling the rhythm of the field. The scuff of boots, the quickening heartbeat of anticipation, the tiny movements each Marine made as they prepared to rush her. She had trained for this, anticipated this moment. It wasn't about striking first. It was about precision, timing, and exploiting the smallest openings. The first Marine lunged. Maya smoothly, redirecting his momentum with a subtle pivot. He stumbled past her, arms flailing, and crashed into the gravel. The second Marine, seeing the first fall, hesitated for a fraction of a second, a fraction that would cost him everything. Maya moved in a continuous, fluid motion, using his momentum against him, and sent him sprawling beside the first. The remaining 4 reacted together now, attempting to overwhelm her with a coordinated surge. But coordination without awareness is nothing. Maya's mind mapped each trajectory: left, right, center, angles, height, weight, momentum. She shifted her stance, pivoted, and executed a sweeping motion, leveraging her entire body like a pendulum. The third Marine went down. The fourth, caught off balance, toppled beside him. Gasps rippled through the circle. The 5 Marines on the ground were stunned, sprawled in the dust, faces etched with disbelief. His jaw tightened. Pride battled with astonishment. He had expected difficulty, perhaps a bit of skill, maybe even embarrassment for her. But this? 6 men brought down in mere seconds by a single move. Impossible. Maya didn't pause. She moved to the final Marine, whose initial confidence had turned into hesitation. One careful, calculated redirection, and he too went down, landing in a heap, gasping for breath. The field was silent except for the shallow, ragged breaths of the fallen men. 6 Marines had attacked at once, and none had succeeded. Not because they lacked training or strength, but because skill and awareness had eclipsed brute force entirely. Captain Reed stepped forward, finally breaking the silence. His voice carried authority, tinged with awe. "Control, Marines, that's control. Notice the precision, the technique, the anticipation. Mastery is not measured by how hard you hit, but how effectively you manage momentum, timing, and balance." His eyes met Maya's briefly, a silent nod passing between instructor and commander. Respect had been earned, but it was quiet, deliberate, and undeniable. Maya knelt among the Marines to check for injuries. None were serious. Not one of the six had sustained lasting harm, yet all bore the unmistakable expression of shock and humiliation. She spoke softly. "Are you all okay?" Not with condescension, not with arrogance, but with genuine concern. The contrast between her skill and her care deepened the lesson. Strength without control is dangerous. Control without compassion is hollow. The six Marines scrambled to their feet, brushing dust and sweat from their uniforms. Hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his gloves. I underestimated you," he said, voice tight. The words were heavy with grudging respect, pride battling against acknowledgement. He was still reluctant to admit defeat outright, but the realization had sunk in. This was not about gender. This was about capability, precision, and the quiet authority Maya exuded. The other Marines remained tense, silently evaluating her every move, every step, every calm breath. A few muttered under their breath words of astonishment or disbelief. "She's unreal. I can't believe that just happened." All six, gone in seconds. Maya stood, arms at her sides, composed and unreadable. She didn't need to gloat. Her point had been made. The lesson had been delivered. Captain Reed addressed the group again. "You just experienced a demonstration of what discipline, practice, and awareness can achieve. Do not mistake arrogance for strength. Remember, Marines, control is more valuable than speed, precision more important than power. Let this be a reminder that skill will always outmatch overconfidence." His gaze lingered on the men who had fallen first, then on. The unspoken message was clear. The hierarchy of ego had shifted, and respect was no longer optional. Shifted his weight uneasily, his pride bruised but silently acknowledging the truth. The other men, too, absorbed the lesson, slowly, grudgingly, yet undeniably. Their earlier laughter, their mockery, had evaporated entirely, replaced by a newfound attentiveness. Maya took a deep breath, letting the tension dissipate slightly. Her eyes scanned the circle one last time. The field was quiet now except for the shuffle of boots and the occasional cough. The lesson had been delivered not through words but through movement, through action. 6 Marines had come at her at once, and all had been brought down by a single, precise move. A feat that would be spoken of quietly, shared in whispers, and remembered long after the day ended. Even as the dust settled and the men began to regain their footing, there was an unmistakable shift in the atmosphere. Respect, cautious but real, had replaced skepticism. Ego, still present, had been tempered by undeniable skill. Laughter would return eventually, but it would no longer mock. It would be quieter, more respectful, tinged with admiration. Maya straightened, brushing gravel from her uniform, her eyes meeting one final time. No words were needed. He understood now. Underestimate her and the consequences would be immediate. Respect her and the lessons she imparted could make them stronger. The hierarchy had shifted, and it wasn't based on strength, size, or arrogance. It was based on precision, discipline, and control. Captain Reed stepped forward again, voice calm and commanding. "Lesson over. Remember what you just saw. Remember the principles. Dismiss them at your own risk. Dismiss the instructor at your peril." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Dismiss the lesson, and it will teach you another way you might not enjoy." Maya's presence remained quiet but undeniable. She had proven the power of control over brute force, patience over arrogance, and awareness over. 6 Marines had come at her, expecting dominance. They had left with a new understanding. Skill could not be underestimated. Ego could not override expertise. And one precise move, executed with calm certainty, could shift the entire dynamic in an instant. As the Marines regrouped, brushing off dust and adjusting their uniforms, a subtle, almost imperceptible change had taken hold. Still tense, nodded once toward Maya, an unspoken acknowledgement of her mastery. Others followed, some hesitant, some reluctant, all changed. They had arrived confident, mocking, ready to dominate. They left humbled, thoughtful, and aware that respect had been earned not through words but through undeniable action. And as Maya walked to the edge of the training field, her gaze swept across the horizon of camp. She knew today was only the beginning. The laughter might return eventually, the jokes might start again, but the lesson would remain. One move executed with precision could redefine expectations. One Marine, disciplined and skilled, could command respect in a matter of seconds. And for the 6 men who had laughed at her, the image of that single, fluid motion would be impossible to forget. The training field had grown quiet, the dust settling over the flattened gravel where 6 Marines had just experienced an unforgettable lesson. Their pride was bruised, their faces flushed with a mixture of exhaustion, disbelief, and embarrassment. The echoes of their earlier laughter had been replaced by the weight of realization. They had come into the exercise confident, mocking a new female instructor, expecting a routine demonstration. Instead, they had been humbled, disciplined, and incapacitated, one after another, by a single precise move. Briggs stood slightly apart from the others, brushing dust off his uniform while his hands trembled subtly. Pride warred with recognition in his eyes, and though he refused to admit it aloud, he had learned a difficult truth. Lieutenant Maya Torres was not to be underestimated. The memory of her calm, measured movements, the way she had read their momentum, redirected their energy and sent them sprawling, burned into his mind. It wasn't a matter of strength. It was about skill, awareness, and control. The other Marines gathered themselves slowly, muttering under their breaths. Some whispered incredulously, "Did that really just happen? All 6, gone in seconds." The words barely formed before they were replaced with nervous laughter, awkward shuffling, and sidelong glances toward Maya. Even the bravest among them had recognized, without needing to speak, that the hierarchy of ego had shifted. The instructor they had mocked was no longer merely a woman. They now saw her as a Marine whose discipline demanded respect. Maya, standing at the edge of the circle, allowed herself a fleeting exhale. She had taught many lessons before, but this one had been different. The sheer audacity of the men, the arrogance of assumption, made the impact far more profound. She knew that some of the Marines might never admit their embarrassment out loud. That was fine. Respect didn't always need words. It often manifested quietly, through changed attitudes, cautious movements, and reconsidered judgments. Captain Reed approached slowly, his eyes scanning the Marines. "Today," he said, his voice calm but carrying authority, "was not just about combat technique. It was about understanding that arrogance has consequences. Underestimating a fellow Marine, regardless of rank, experience, or gender, can leave you vulnerable. Learn from this moment. Remember it." His gaze lingered on for a long second before shifting to the rest of the group. He could see the hesitation in their stances, the awkward self-awareness that had replaced their earlier bravado. Opened his mouth to argue, to deflect, to reclaim a shred of pride, but the words failed him. His throat felt dry, and the overwhelming sense of being outmatched weighed heavily. It wasn't just that Maya had bested him. It was that she had done so effortlessly, gracefully, and with impeccable control. He forced a tight-lipped nod, a silent acknowledgement of what had happened, though he refused to voice it aloud. Some of the Marines began to murmur among themselves, processing the event in hushed tones. The embarrassment of the takedown lingered, but curiosity started to emerge. "She wasn't just fast, she was calculating," one said. "It wasn't luck, it was technique," another added. Slowly, reluctant respect began to creep in, mingling with the remnants of their bruised pride. Maya walked quietly among the men, checking their posture, ensuring no one was injured. Her movements were professional, compassionate, and entirely in control. She knelt briefly to help one Marine adjust his uniform after a fall, offering guidance without condescension. The contrast between her skill in combat and her measured care for the Marines' well-being deepened the lesson. Strength alone might command fear, but control, discipline, and empathy commanded respect. Meanwhile, paced slightly, trying to shake the memory of his defeat, his frustration simmered beneath the surface. "I can't believe it, 6 of us all down," he muttered under his breath, glaring at the ground. He felt a sting deeper than mere humiliation, the realization that his assumptions and his overconfidence had failed him. This was a lesson he would not forget, though he hated admitting it. The rest of the Marines were quieter now, still processing, still absorbing the shift in dynamics. Their earlier camaraderie had been based on shared bravado, a mutual reinforcement of overconfidence. That camaraderie had not been destroyed, but it had been tempered, reshaped by a new understanding. Maya had shown them that leadership, precision, and skill were far more powerful than raw strength or ego. The lesson extended beyond hand-to-hand combat. It was a principle that would inform every action they took on the field. Captain Reed watched silently, noting the subtle changes in the group's behavior. He had seen pride humbled many times before, but rarely had he witnessed such a complete and immediate shift in attitude. Maya had executed her teaching perfectly: demonstration, discipline, and consequence. No one had been seriously injured, yet the message had been clear, unforgettable, and internalized. After a few moments, the Marines began to gather themselves, stepped forward, attempting to reclaim some composure. He glanced at Maya, the corner of his mouth twitching in a mix of frustration and acknowledgement. You're something else," he said, voice gruff. The words were clipped, reluctant, but the recognition was unmistakable. Maya gave a small nod, accepting it silently. That was all that needed to be said. The rest of the men followed suit, their gazes flicking between her and each other. The earlier laughter had vanished entirely, replaced by contemplation and quiet awe. Maya addressed the group again, her voice calm and deliberate. This was not a demonstration of superiority. It was a demonstration of skill, focus, and control. Any of you can achieve this level of precision if you respect the process, practice deliberately, and remain aware of your environment. Remember, underestimation is a dangerous habit, and arrogance is a liability. The words landed heavily. Each Marine felt their pride tempered, their ego adjusted. For the first time, many of them considered not just the physical challenge, but the strategic, mental, and emotional discipline required to achieve mastery. Maya's presence had become more than just a display of ability. It was a model, a standard, a quiet authority that demanded reflection. Later, as the Marines regrouped and began returning to their routines, whispers spread across the camp. "Did you see that? She didn't just fight, she controlled us. I've never seen anything like that." Even those who had mocked her earlier found themselves replaying the moment in their minds, reconsidering everything they thought they knew. The tale of 6 Marines brought down in seconds would circulate quietly, becoming legend within the confines of camp. Lingered behind, packing slightly as he mulled over the events. His pride had been wounded, his ego challenged, but beneath it all, a grudging respect had begun to take root. Maya Torres had demonstrated something far more valuable than strength: the ability to command attention, earn respect, and deliver lessons with both precision and integrity. Maya herself remained composed, preparing for the next segment of training. She understood the delicate balance of ego, skill, and learning. The Marines' initial laughter had been a natural human reaction, but the silence and reflection that followed were far more important. Lessons learned under duress, when pride is challenged, are the lessons that last. And today, she had given them one they would never forget. As she packed her notes and surveyed the training field, Maya allowed herself a small, private thought. Today had been a demonstration, yes, but it was also a reminder. The assumptions people make about you are often their greatest weakness. By staying calm, disciplined, and aware, she had transformed mockery into respect. And in doing so, she had set the tone for every lesson, every encounter, and every challenge to come. The camp sun shone brighter now, illuminating the dust and gravel scattered across the field. 6 Marines had come into the morning full of arrogance, confident in their abilities. They left humbled, reflective, and undeniably changed. The laughter had faded, but the lesson endured, a lesson of control, skill, and the quiet power of underestimation. And as Maya walked toward the edge of the field, Captain Reed called after the Marines. "Remember this day. Not for embarrassment, not for victory, but for the lesson it teaches. Never underestimate skill, never overestimate strength, and never forget the value of respect." The Marines absorbed the words in silence, each internalizing their meaning. They had mocked, they had challenged, and they had been humbled. The experience would linger in their minds far longer than the physical exertion of the morning. The lesson had been delivered perfectly, and Lieutenant Maya Torres had ensured that no one would soon forget it. A week had passed since the incident on the training field, yet the memory of Maya Tor's flawless takedown of 6 Marines lingered like a quiet storm in their minds. The air at camp was thick with anticipation and subtle tension. Whispers followed Briggs and his squad wherever they went. "Did you see it again? I still can't believe it." The Marines' earlier arrogance had shifted to a cautious respect, mixed with curiosity about what Lieutenant Torres might do next. Captain Reed had assigned Maya to lead squad during a joint combat readiness evaluation. It was no small responsibility. The exercise simulated high-pressure scenarios that required teamwork, quick thinking, and flawless execution. For the assignment was humiliating. He had been bested by Maya, yet now he was expected to follow her lead. The others were uneasy, still unsure how to reconcile their grudging respect with lingering ego. Maya arrived at the training ground before the squad, her movements calm, purposeful, and unhurried. She carried a clipboard with detailed instructions, reviewing the exercise parameters silently. Her presence had an almost magnetic effect on the squad. Tension, anticipation, and a deep-seated curiosity combined into a sense of focus that had been absent during the mockery of the previous week. She wasn't just an instructor today, she was a leader, and the men instinctively felt the weight of her authority. When the squad gathered, eyes met hers, a mix of defiance and wariness lingering beneath the surface. Maya didn't address it. She simply nodded and began briefing them. Her instructions were concise but thorough, emphasizing strategy, awareness, and coordination. "This exercise isn't about ego," she said calmly. "It's about trust, timing, and communication. If we fail to work as a unit, someone will get hurt. Pay attention to your squad mates, anticipate their actions, and maintain awareness of your environment." The squad shifted uncomfortably, acknowledging her words. Opened his mouth to argue, to assert some authority, but Maya's gaze held him silent. Her calm confidence, combined with undeniable competence, left no room for confrontation. Slowly, begrudgingly, he accepted his role, not as a challenger, but as a participant under her leadership. The exercise began with a simulated scenario. A small unit navigating a hostile urban environment with multiple threats, including simulated explosives, ambushes, and obstacles. Maya guided the squad through each checkpoint with precision, giving instructions that accounted for individual strengths while reinforcing the importance of teamwork. She demonstrated not just technique, but situational awareness and decision-making under pressure, skills the Marines had underestimated her for, but which now became their lifeline. As the squad advanced through the field, an unexpected complication arose. One of the simulated obstacles, a field of mock explosive devices, had been set up incorrectly. A real hazard presented itself. A Marine tripped, and while the explosives were inert, he fell hard, striking his side and hitting the ground with a grunt of pain. Panic flared in the squad instantly. Froze, his prior frustration giving way to fear. The men glanced at each other, uncertainty creeping into their movements. Maya reacted instantly. Calm and precise, she assessed the situation and directed the squad. "Cover left, Carter, secure the perimeter. Assist the injured Marine. Move quickly but remain controlled." Her voice was measured, authoritative, and unwavering. Within seconds, she had coordinated the team with clarity, ensuring that each Marine knew exactly what to do. Maya approached the injured Marine, kneeling to assess his condition. Her hands moved with practiced precision, checking for injuries, stabilizing his position, and keeping him calm. Watched, awe creeping over him as he realized that Maya's authority and skill extended far beyond combat technique. She was capable of decisive action under pressure, with a focus that preserved both efficiency and safety. The squad executed her instructions flawlessly. Each member moved with a newfound sense of purpose, relying on Maya's guidance rather than instinct alone. The initial hesitation was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence in her leadership. Still processing the events, found himself following her instructions without question, a stark contrast to his behavior just a week earlier. He realized that competence demanded respect, and leadership earned through skill and composure could inspire far more than threats or bluster. Once the simulated crisis was handled, Maya regrouped the squad. "This is exactly why preparation, awareness, and trust matter," she said calmly. "The exercise is designed to challenge you physically, mentally, and emotionally. Panic and ego will get you hurt. Skill, coordination, and discipline will keep you alive." Her words carried weight, resonating in a way that the Marines had never experienced from a superior officer, especially one they had initially mocked. Approached her afterward, his usual bravado tempered by humility. "Lieutenant, we never realized how much goes into this," he admitted, his voice quieter than usual. You didn't just take us down on the field, you showed us how to lead." Maya nodded, her expression unreadable but calm. She didn't offer praise. This was a moment to internalize the lesson, not to seek validation. The rest of the squad gathered around, some muttering their agreement, others still processing the magnitude of her competence. They had arrived eager to assert themselves, ready to test her limits. They left with a profound sense of respect, understanding that leadership was earned not by force of personality, but by action, foresight, and the ability to make split-second decisions that could save lives. As the day continued, Maya guided the squad through additional exercises, each more challenging than the last. She emphasized observation, anticipation, and the strategic use of technique over brute strength. Found himself taking notes, mentally cataloging every command, every adjustment, every tactic she employed. He realized that her mastery was not just physical, it was intellectual, psychological, and tactical. During a break, the squad gathered in the shade, exhaustion and relief etched across their faces. Sat quietly, reflecting on the day's events. He had been humbled, challenged, and inspired all in one morning. The earlier humiliation on the training field had evolved into a grudging admiration. Maya Torres had proven herself not just as a skilled combatant, but as a leader capable of orchestrating a team under extreme pressure. Captain Reed watched from a distance, a small, approving smile on his face. He knew the impact this week's exercises would have on the squad. Maya had done more than train Marines. She had reshaped their understanding of leadership, respect, and the value of skill over ego. The lesson extended far beyond the field. It would influence how these men approached teamwork, decision-making, and personal growth for the rest of their careers. By the end of the day, the squad had completed the exercises successfully, each member demonstrating increased coordination, discipline, and awareness. The earlier tension, skepticism, and mockery had transformed into trust, respect, and quiet camaraderie. Once skeptical and proud, now moved with a sense of humility and purpose, following Maya's instructions with precision and confidence. As the squad gathered to debrief, Maya addressed them one final time for the day. Today wasn't just about exercises or drills. It was about learning to trust yourself, your squad, and your leadership. You faced a challenge, reacted under pressure, and adapted. Remember this: skills, awareness, and respect are what keep you alive, and ego is the enemy of survival. Her words lingered, resonating with each Marine in a way that few lectures ever could. That night in the quiet of the barracks reflected on the day's events. He had gone from arrogance to humility, from mockery to admiration, and from skepticism to respect. He understood now that Maya Torres' authority was absolute not because of rank alone, but because of skill, composure, and unwavering confidence. The lesson was clear. True leadership earns loyalty, not fear, and skill commands respect more reliably than strength ever could. Maya, meanwhile, reviewed notes for the next day's training. She was aware of the impact she had made, but she remained focused on the task ahead. Today had been about proving competence, guiding the squad, and saving lives in a controlled exercise. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and further opportunities to transform skeptical Marines into disciplined, cohesive units. Her mission was never about recognition. It was about cultivating skill, awareness, and respect. The sun set over camp, casting long shadows across the training grounds. The squad returned to the barracks, tired but transformed, carrying with them a lesson they would not soon forget. Maya's quiet authority, combined with her flawless execution under pressure, had shifted the dynamic irrevocably. The laughter and mockery from a week ago had been replaced with contemplation, discipline, and burgeoning respect. And as lay in his bunk, replaying the day's events, he realized something fundamental. Maya Torres had done more than lead a squad through exercises. She had taught them the essence of leadership, discipline, and trust. 1 week ago, he had laughed at her. Now he could only acknowledge her skills silently, and hope that he, too, could grow to meet the standard she had set. The sun rose over camp, casting long shadows across the training grounds. The day promised more exercises, but unlike the first encounter, the atmosphere among Briggs' squad was transformed. Gone was the arrogance that had characterized their earlier interactions. In its place was a tentative respect, a quiet acknowledgement that Lieutenant Maya Torres was more than an instructor. She was a leader, a strategist, and a Marine whose skill demanded recognition. Maya arrived early, as always, clipboard in hand, scanning the field with calm focus. Her movements were deliberate, each step measured and purposeful. Squad gathered shortly after, standing than usual, their expressions a mixture of focus and lingering awe. The events of the previous week and the exercises from yesterday had shifted something intangible within them. A willingness to follow, a readiness to observe, and a newfound appreciation for discipline and precision. Captain Reed approached Maya quietly, his presence understated yet authoritative. "Your squad is ready," he said softly. "They've learned more from you in a week than I've seen in months with some units." Maya nodded slightly, acknowledging the compliment with her trademark calm. She didn't seek recognition, but she appreciated the quiet affirmation that her methods were effective. The exercise for the day was a simulated high-risk mission, designed to test coordination, observation, and teamwork under pressure. The scenario involved navigating a dense obstacle course, simulating urban combat conditions with multiple points of potential danger. Maya briefed the squad with clarity and precision, emphasizing strategy, awareness, and communication. "Today, your mission isn't about who's fastest or strongest," she explained. "It's about understanding the environment, anticipating threats, and supporting each other. Mistakes will have consequences. Pay attention, trust your squad, and move with purpose." Listening intently, felt a shift within himself. Gone was the skepticism that had marked his initial encounter with Maya. Now he observed her carefully, noting the way she calculated risks, positioned herself to guide the squad, and maintained composure. He realized that leadership wasn't about dominance. It was about skill, clarity, and the ability to instill confidence in others. As the exercise began, Maya led the squad with quiet authority. Each movement was deliberate, each instruction precise. The Marines responded in kind, moving as a cohesive unit for the first time. The drills were challenging, pushing their physical endurance, tactical thinking, and communication to the limit. Yet under Maya's guidance, the squad executed each maneuver flawlessly. The camaraderie among the Marines grew as they learned to trust her judgment, rely on each other, and anticipate challenges before they occurred. During one particularly complex segment, a simulated ambush tested the squad's ability to react under sudden stress. Maya's eyes swept the field, instantly assessing the situation. She gave concise, calm instructions. "Secure the left flank. Carter, cover the rear. Martinez, assist the injured." Her voice carried authority without panic, and each Marine moved with precision, executing the plan flawlessly. The ambush was neutralized in record time, demonstrating not only their growing skill, but also the impact of Maya's leadership. By midday, the squad had completed the exercises ahead of schedule, a feat that drew attention from other units on the field. Whispers of admiration spread through the camp. "Did you see that squad? All under her command. I've never seen that level of coordination." Even those who had doubted her capability were now observing with genuine respect, acknowledging the results without hesitation. Approached Maya during a short break, his posture more relaxed but his expression serious. "Lieutenant, I didn't realize how much goes into this, he admitted, his tone subdued. It's not just the moves, it's the awareness, the coordination, the way you see everything before it happens. Maya nodded, her calm expression unreadable, but her eyes conveyed understanding. She had expected growth, but hearing acknowledgement from carried weight. It confirmed that the lessons she had delivered were being internalized. The squad resumed exercises in the afternoon, now functioning like a single, cohesive unit. Maya's leadership encouraged proactive thinking, situational awareness, and mutual support. Each Marine became aware not only of their own actions, but of the squad's dynamics, anticipating challenges and acting in concert. His confidence returned, tempered by humility. He realized that following a capable leader did not diminish his own abilities, it enhanced them. Captain Reed observed from a distance, noting subtle changes in morale and performance. Maya's methods had achieved more than just technical skill. The squad's respect for her translated into focus, discipline, and enhanced performance. They were functioning as a team, guided by a leader whose authority was earned through action, competence, and the consistent demonstration of skill. During the final drill of the day, a simulated extraction under duress, the squad encountered a mock casualty trapped in a precarious position. Maya quickly assessed the situation and gave precise instructions, coordinating movement, positioning, and tactical support. The squad executed her plan flawlessly, securing the casualty and completing the extraction without incident. The exercise ended successfully, and the squad gathered to debrief, breathing heavily but visibly proud of their performance. "Excellent work today," Maya said calmly, addressing the squad. "You operated as a cohesive unit, anticipated challenges, and supported one another. Leadership isn't about ego, it's about responsibility, skill, and the ability to ensure the safety and effectiveness of your team. Today, you demonstrated all of these principles." His expression reflected a mix of pride and humility. He finally understood the magnitude of the lesson Maya had been teaching. Respect for skill and authority was earned, not demanded. He approached her after the debrief, extending his hand. "Lieutenant, thank you for everything." Maya accepted the handshake with quiet grace, her acknowledgement sufficient without further commentary. The squad returned to the barracks, exhausted but transformed. They had arrived skeptical, unsure of what to expect, and even mocking. They left with a profound understanding of leadership, discipline, and teamwork. The respect for Maya Torres was no longer reluctant. It was genuine, earned through demonstration, guidance, and the consistent application of skill under pressure. Later that evening, whispers of the squad's performance reached other units. The story of Maya's leadership spread, quiet but undeniable. She had transformed a skeptical, arrogant squad into a disciplined, cohesive team. The impact extended beyond skill. It had reshaped perceptions, challenged assumptions, and established a standard for excellence. Lay in his bunk, replaying the day's events. He reflected on the journey from mockery to respect, from skepticism to admiration. He understood now that leadership, skill, and composure were more powerful than ego, arrogance, or raw strength. Maya Torres had not only trained them physically, but had transformed their mindset, instilling principles that would guide them throughout their careers. Maya, meanwhile, reviewed notes for upcoming exercises. She was aware of the transformation she had facilitated, but she remained focused on the work ahead. Her goal was not recognition. It was preparation, skill building, and instilling the principles of discipline, awareness, and respect. Each Marine under her guidance was a potential force multiplier, capable of responding to challenges effectively and safely. As the camp sun set, the squad rested but remained reflective. The week had been transformative, their attitudes reshaped by experience, guidance, and the example set by Maya. The laughter, skepticism, and mockery of the past had been replaced by admiration, trust, and respect. For Briggs and his squad, the lesson was clear. True leadership is earned through skill, composure, and the consistent demonstration of competence under pressure. Maya's presence had left an indelible mark on the squad. Her authority, demonstrated through action and guidance, had shifted their understanding of leadership. The morale, cohesion, and performance of the squad had improved dramatically, not through intimidation, but through example. Respect, once reluctantly granted, was now genuine, earned through consistent demonstration of excellence. By nightfall, the squad's reputation had quietly transformed across the camp. Other Marines spoke in hushed tones of Maya's leadership, growth, and the squad's remarkable performance. The lessons learned were more than technical. They were foundational, instilling principles of discipline, skill, and respect that would endure far beyond the training grounds of camp. And as the moon rose over the barracks, casting silver light over the quiet grounds, one truth became undeniable. Lieutenant Maya Torres had not only led her squad to success, she had reshaped their understanding of what it meant to be a Marine, a leader, and a member of a cohesive team. The respect she had earned was not fleeting. It was forged in action, discipline, and the quiet demonstration of undeniable skill. Weeks had passed since Maya Torres had first demonstrated her extraordinary skill and discipline to Briggs' squad. The impact of her training and leadership continued to ripple quietly through camp. Stories of her decisive actions, both during the takedown of 6 Marines and her effective squad leadership during exercises, were circulating in hushed whispers among other units. She had earned a reputation, not through boasting or ostentation, but through competence, calm authority, and results. Today was different. Captain Reed had organized a public recognition ceremony for outstanding leadership and squad performance. The ceremony was a rare occasion, designed to highlight exceptional contributions and to serve as a model for other Marines. Squad had been nominated for their performance under Maya's guidance, a direct reflection of the transformation she had fostered. For this was both humbling and nerve-wracking. He remembered the laughter and arrogance of the past, the moment of humiliation when Maya had brought him down in front of everyone. Now, standing on the brink of public acknowledgement, he felt a mixture of pride and lingering apprehension. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of the ocean from nearby shores. Rows of Marines assembled, standing at attention in neatly arranged formations. The ceremony was formal, yet charged with anticipation. Maya arrived quietly, her posture erect, her expression calm and composed. There was no need for fanfare. Her reputation had already preceded her, carried on the respect of those she had trained and the stories of her past exploits. Captain Reed stepped forward to address the assembled Marines. Today, we recognize leadership, discipline, and the transformation of a squad under extraordinary guidance, he began, his voice carrying across the field. Lieutenant Maya Torres has demonstrated exceptional skill, composure, and the ability to lead by example. Under her direction, Briggs' squad has achieved unprecedented cohesion and performance, embodying the principles of teamwork, discipline, and respect that define our corps. As he spoke, squad stood rigidly, absorbing the words with a mixture of pride and humility. Himself felt a complex surge of emotion. The same officer he had once underestimated, the one who had brought him down in seconds, was now the architect of their success. Her guidance had not only honed their skills but had reshaped their attitudes, instilling lessons that went far beyond physical technique. When Captain Reed concluded his remarks, he gestured to Maya. "Lieutenant Torres, on behalf of the command and all present, we formally recognize your extraordinary contributions to this unit. Your leadership has not only elevated the squad, but has set a standard for excellence that others will strive to emulate." Maya stepped forward, her movements composed and precise. She accepted the formal acknowledgement with quiet dignity, nodding subtly to the assembled Marines. She spoke softly, her voice carrying authority without arrogance. "Thank you, Captain. Recognition is secondary to the responsibility of leadership. The performance you see today reflects the commitment, adaptability, and dedication of every Marine in this squad. My role is to guide, instruct, and facilitate growth." They executed with skill and discipline. They earned this recognition. A ripple of applause spread through the formation. The squad members exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of pride and disbelief, for it was particularly poignant. The man who had once mocked and doubted Maya was now publicly acknowledging her leadership, not with words alone but through participation in the ceremony. His respect, previously reluctant and grudging, had become sincere and visible. As the ceremony continued, other officers spoke of the squad's achievements under Maya's guidance. The drills, the exercises, and the simulated crises had all been executed with remarkable precision. The squad's cohesion was noted as exemplary, their awareness and responsiveness praised. Maya's influence was clear. Her methodical approach, calm authority, and exceptional skill had elevated a once disorganized and skeptical unit into a model of disciplined teamwork. After the formal ceremony concluded, approached Maya privately. The weight of the past few weeks pressed on him, and he struggled to articulate what he felt. "Lieutenant, I thank you. I don't think I've ever respected someone as much as I do you right now, not just for your skill, but for the way you lead." Maya gave a small, acknowledging nod, her expression calm but warm. She didn't need flattery. This was a quiet acknowledgement of the journey had. The squad gathered afterward, informal yet attentive, reflecting on the ceremony and the praise they had received. They had been transformed, not by intimidation, not by fear, but by the consistent demonstration of competence and leadership. Maya had challenged them, humbled them, and guided them toward growth. The impact was profound. The bond between instructor and squad had strengthened, built on mutual trust and respect rather than authority alone. In the following days, word of Maya's leadership and the squad's performance spread further. Other units began observing her techniques, noting her calm, strategic guidance and the transformative impact on her Marines. They realized that her authority was derived not from rank, but from skill, composure, and the ability to earn respect through action rather than assertion. Her influence was subtle yet undeniable, shaping the culture and expectations of the camp. Reflecting privately, acknowledged the growth within himself and his squad. He had arrived at camp confident, brash, and dismissive. He had laughed at Maya, assumed superiority, and been humbled in a matter of seconds. The lessons he had learned were multifaceted: humility, respect for skill, the value of observation and patience, and the understanding that leadership is earned, not demanded. That afternoon, the squad returned to training, this time with a new sense of purpose. The exercises, though physically demanding, were approached with a calm focus that had been absent in previous weeks. Communication flowed naturally, awareness sharpened, and the Marines anticipated one another's actions. Maya observed silently, guiding as needed but allowing the squad to demonstrate autonomy. The transformation was complete. They were no longer a collection of skeptical, arrogant individuals. They were a cohesive, disciplined unit. By the evening, the squad had completed a particularly challenging simulation, surpassing expectations once again. And the others had internalized the principles Maya had instilled: skill, composure, trust, and respect. The squad's growth was not just evident in their performance, but in their interactions, their decision-making, and their confidence in one another. Captain Reed, observing from a distance, allowed himself a rare smile. Maya's leadership had achieved what few instructors ever accomplished. She had not only trained Marines but had transformed them, reshaping attitudes, behaviors, and expectations. The ceremony of recognition was only a formal acknowledgement. The true impact was ongoing, woven into the fabric of daily life at camp. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the training grounds, Maya reflected quietly on the journey. The laughter, skepticism, and arrogance she had encountered were replaced with respect, trust, and cohesion. The transformation of squad was tangible, a testament to the power of leadership grounded in skill, composure, and quiet authority. For Briggs and his squad, the public recognition was more than an award. It was validation of growth, effort, and discipline. It symbolized the shift from underestimation to acknowledgement, from arrogance to respect. And for Maya, it reinforced a fundamental truth. Leadership is not about being the loudest voice, the strongest fighter, or the most intimidating presence. Leadership is about earning trust, guiding skillfully and inspiring growth through action. The night descended over camp, serene yet alive with quiet reflection. The squad, once skeptical and mocking, now walked with purpose, pride, and cohesion. Maya Torres had achieved more than she had set out to demonstrate. She had earned respect, transformed attitudes, and set a standard that would influence the Marines for years to come. The legend of her skill, composure, and leadership would not fade. It had been forged in action, acknowledged publicly, and through earned respect. And as lay in his bunk that night, he replayed the events of the past weeks, from the initial takedown to the public recognition ceremony. He understood, fully and finally, the magnitude of what he had witnessed. Maya Torres had not only demonstrated extraordinary skill, she had redefined what it meant to be a leader, a Marine, and a source of respect and inspiration. Weeks had turned into months at camp, but the echo of Lieutenant Maya Torres' impact remained fresh in the minds of Briggs and his squad. The transformation was not fleeting. It had taken root in the way they moved, trained, and interacted. Once skeptical, once arrogant, they had evolved into a unit defined by discipline, trust, and cohesion. The lessons Maya had imparted were no longer theoretical. They were ingrained into the rhythm of their daily lives as Marines. Maya observed the squad from a distance during a routine training drill. She had learned that true leadership was as much about observation as it was about action. Today, she was not actively directing every movement. Instead, she watched, her eyes scanning, noting their precision, communication, and situational awareness. The squad moved as a single organism, each Marine anticipating the other, responding instantly to changing conditions and maintaining focus under pressure. The transformation was profound. Leading a small segment of the drill, glanced back at Maya. Her presence, quiet but undeniable, remained a guiding force. He reflected on how far he had come. From mocking her abilities to being humbled by her skill, from skepticism to reluctant respect, and finally to admiration and trust, his journey was complete. He understood now that leadership, discipline, and respect were inseparable. Maya had not just trained them physically, she had molded their approach to life as Marines. The squad's reputation had spread far beyond their unit. Other teams, initially dismissive, now sought advice, observed their drills, and quietly incorporated lessons learned indirectly from Maya's guidance. The impact was subtle but undeniable. Skills improved, attitudes shifted, and the culture of respect for discipline and leadership strengthened across camp. Maya's influence was quiet yet pervasive, shaping not just a single squad but the morale and ethos of multiple units. One afternoon, Captain Reed called the squad for an informal evaluation. The atmosphere was calm, yet charged with anticipation. The squad approached the drill with their usual precision, executing each maneuver flawlessly. Maya allowed them to take initiative, stepping in only when guidance was necessary. Each decision, each action reflected their internalization of her principles: skill, awareness, communication, and trust. After the evaluation, Captain Reed addressed the group. "I have witnessed many squads train, and I have witnessed many instructors lead, but what I see here is exceptional. Lieutenant Torres has not just trained you, she has transformed you. Your coordination, awareness, and leadership reflect her influence. This is the standard we hope all units can achieve." His words were deliberate, carrying weight and authority. Stepped forward, speaking for the first time in a formal setting about the lessons learned. "Sir, Lieutenant Torres has taught us more than technique or drills. She's shown us what leadership truly means. She's taught us to trust, to anticipate, to act with discipline, and to respect skill over ego. The transformation in our squad is a testament to her guidance, patience, and expertise." His voice carried confidence, humility, and sincere admiration. The other squad members nodded, some adding their own acknowledgement. Carter spoke quietly but firmly. "She pushed us, challenged us, and never let us settle for anything less than our best. That's leadership. That's what we've learned from her." Martinez added, "It's not just about being the strongest or fastest. It's about awareness, control, and respect. We know now what that looks like because of her." Maya stood silently, letting the words wash over her. Recognition was never her goal, but witnessing the squad articulate their growth and understanding affirmed her methods. The lessons were no longer hers alone. They had been internalized, transformed into practical skills, and embedded into the ethos of the Marines she had trained. This was leadership in its form, enduring, transformative, and replicable. As the day continued, the squad participated in increasingly complex exercises. Obstacles were navigated, scenarios adapted in real time, and coordination maintained under pressure. Maya observed their problem-solving and adaptability, silently nodding improvements. The squad now anticipated challenges rather than reacting to them. Mistakes were minimized, and when they occurred, corrective action was swift, disciplined, and collective. This level of performance was unprecedented for a squad that had started the season with skepticism and arrogance. Watching his squad excel reflected on the lessons learned: humility in the face of expertise, the importance of preparation and observation, and the value of trust in leadership. Maya had shown that skill could not be underestimated, and that respect was earned through demonstration, consistency, and integrity. He realized that the transformation extended beyond drills and exercises. It was foundational, shaping how they would act in high-pressure situations, in training, and in real combat scenarios. In the barracks that evening, the squad gathered informally, discussing the day's exercises, the challenges overcome, and the lessons applied. The mood was one of camaraderie, trust, and shared pride. Gone was the tension, the brash competitiveness, and the skepticism that had defined the group in earlier weeks. Maya's influence was evident not only in performance but in mindset. The Marines were thinking strategically, communicating effectively, and reflecting critically on their actions, a true testament to her guidance. Maya joined them briefly, offering insight and guidance without dominating the conversation. She encouraged reflection, asking questions that prompted critical thinking and self-assessment. "What did you notice about your movement during the extraction?" she asked. "How did your anticipation of each other's actions change the outcome?" Her questions were deliberate, guiding the squad to understand not only what they did, but why they did it and how it could be improved. Answered thoughtfully, articulating the insights gained from both success and error. The squad engaged in a constructive discussion, each member contributing observations and solutions. Maya listened, nodded, and occasionally provided subtle guidance, allowing the squad to take ownership of their growth. This was the culmination of the lessons she had instilled: leadership not as control, but as facilitation of skill, awareness, and teamwork. By the end of the week, the squad's reputation was cemented. Other Marines, instructors, and officers now viewed them as a model unit. The transformation of the squad under Maya Tor's leadership had become a case study in effective mentorship, demonstrating the power of discipline, skill, and earned respect. Her influence extended quietly but profoundly throughout camp, shaping standards, expectations, and the ethos of excellence. Captain Reed observed the squad one final time during an evening drill, noting the seamless coordination and confident execution. He approached Maya quietly. "Your impact here is remarkable. You've taken a skeptical, arrogant squad and turned them into a model unit. They respect you, trust you, and follow your example willingly. Few instructors achieve this, fewer still with such consistency." Maya offered a modest nod, acknowledging the observation without need for praise. She understood that the true measure of success was the enduring growth of the Marines, not accolades or recognition. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the training grounds, Maya reflected on the journey. From the initial encounter, where 6 Marines had mocked her and assumed superiority, to the transformation of squad into a disciplined, cohesive, and respected unit, the impact of consistent skill, composure, and leadership was clear. Respect had been earned, humility instilled, and excellence achieved through quiet authority and unwavering competence. And his squad gathered later that night, sharing a quiet moment of reflection. "We've come a long way," said softly, his voice tinged with awe and gratitude. I never expected to learn this much from anyone, let alone her. She didn't just teach us to fight, she taught us to think, to lead, and to respect skill above ego." His squad nodded, agreement evident in their expressions. Maya's legacy, though not loudly proclaimed, was firmly established. The lessons she imparted, discipline, awareness, teamwork, and respect, would endure beyond exercises, evaluations, or recognition ceremonies. They were principles embedded in the Marines themselves, shaping their approach to challenges, leadership, and life as service members. In the quiet moments after training, Maya walked the field one last time before nightfall. She surveyed the horizon, reflecting on the journey and the subtle yet profound changes she had inspired. Respect had been earned, skepticism transformed, and a squad once doubtful now stood as a model of excellence. Her influence, though quiet, was enduring. The lesson was clear. Leadership is measured not by ego or force, but by skill, composure, guidance, and the ability to inspire growth in others. And as the camp settled into night, the story of Lieutenant Maya Torres, the instructor who had humbled 6 Marines in a single move, transformed a skeptical squad, and earned enduring respect, remained etched into the fabric of camp. Her legacy was not in recognition alone, but in the skills, mindset, and resilience she had instilled. The laughter, doubt, and arrogance of the past had been replaced with discipline, trust, and admiration. Her influence would continue to shape Marines for years to come. Maya stood silently under the moonlight, knowing that the true measure of success was not accolades or recognition, but the enduring growth, respect, and capability of those she led. And in that quiet triumph, her mission was complete.